Welcome to Riding Counsel with Rich Jaffe, where the open road meets expert advice. I'm Richard Jaffe, an attorney and biking enthusiast, and this is the podcast where we dive into the world of motorcycling, safety, culture, charitable giving, and riding right. So, whether you're a seasoned rider or just getting started, let's talk bikes, the road, and everything in between. Let's ride! Is there a wrong age to ride a motorcycle? Or is the real danger believing you're riding right when you're not? We're going to dive into this, and I have a really great guest with me today. Hello, everybody out there in ridingcounsel.com podcast land. My name is Rich Jaffe. I've been with you several times if you've been with me for a while. And if it's your first time listening, I really appreciate you coming on the channel and taking a look. So you can always find me at ridingcounsel.com. That's ridingcounsel.com. I am a personal injury lawyer handling a lot of motorcycle accident cases, unfortunately. I am a podcaster. I am a motorcycle enthusiast, all of that. And today I have a really great guest for me today. We're going to be talking about riding when you're over 50 and a lot that goes with it. We're going to really unpack this today. I think it's going to be very interesting for a lot of you people out there. But first, I want to talk about my guest. In fact, I want him to talk about himself. So hello, Mr. Guest. How are you? Who are you? Where do you do it? What do you do?
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. My name is Robert. Most people just call me Rob. Sometimes they call me Bob. I am in my mid-50s. I have a YouTube channel called Spoked in the Eye, and I talk a lot about rider safety and riding when you're older, because I started in my early 50s.
Yeah, man, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and I think they're fantastic, and I wanted to really touch on the topic today. So, look, let's just dive into it here. Do you believe that there's a wrong age to ride a motorcycle, or is that just the wrong question altogether?
No, I don't think there's a wrong age. I think there's a wrong mindset in starting to ride a motorcycle. And it's interesting you asked that question, and we have this talk now because just recently someone posted on my channel regarding one of my videos that there is a wrong age, but they were actually suggesting starting in your 50s is too old, which I thought was really unusual. So the reason I say mindset is because there are a lot of mature young people out there. So I don't want to knock young people out and say that, that they're not going to be good riders, because there are mature kids out there and there are immature kids out there. We actually have, or there's a mix. They may be mature in one way and then the immaturity comes out as soon as they hit the bike. We have a family friend that's he's 17. He just learned how to drive. He's learned how to ride a motorcycle, and he makes TikTok videos, and he will drive at 250 kilometers an hour, which I don't know what that brings down to the miles.
Super fast. Let's just say beyond the speed limit, beyond any speed limit in the United States.
Yeah. And for us, the speed limit's 100 kilometers an hour, and he will do these kind of things for TikTok, right? And he's not wearing any safety gear. Oh. So that's the wrong mindset. But then you're going to have young people and I do know some other young people in their early 20s who've just started riding, and they understand they want to be fully kitted up and geared up, and they're going to learn how to ride. This other fellow I told you about also didn't take an MSF course. He just learned how to ride in a parking lot and off he went. That's the wrong mindset. I'm not saying people have to take the MSF course to learn how to ride, because maybe they've been riding all their life and they have a lot of experience. But in the case of someone learning to ride for the first time, like me in my 50s, I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. I wasn't going to take my motorcycle out to a parking lot and learn. I decided to take a course similar to the MSF course that you have down there.
Yeah, actually in a lot of countries, they don't even, the first years of your license, and not even like a permit, but actually when you get a license, they only allow you to purchase a motorcycle, or also allow you to ride a motorcycle only within certain power limits, so you can't get like the beefy motorcycles and stuff like that. Only after like 4 or 5 years of experience of having that license can you do that. So, I understand what you're saying. And you're in Canada, right? You're up.
That's right. I'm on the West Coast in British Columbia.
Yeah. So, what you're describing, I think you're totally right here. I mean, it's a mindset, right? And it's riding right, as I call it, right? And so, not only do you endanger yourself, but you endanger other people around you when you ride like that. And it's not a really good thing to see.
Well, not
Um,
only that, but if you, God forbid, you hit a car and you kill yourself, the person driving the car is going to be traumatized and they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives as well. So you're not just, like affecting yourself or your family, you're affecting other people as well.
right, right. And if not, if you don't have a responsibility to yourself, at least have it to others who don't see you coming. So
Yeah.
that's crazy. But that's something I also wanted to talk about with you, and that thing is ego, right? And I feel like, and again, I don't want to say this about younger riders either, okay, because it could be young or old, but ego starts to play a role in how we ride a motorcycle sometimes. And I'm wondering, do you believe that um you know ego plays a role here? Like, how does ego show up differently in younger riders versus older riders?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the ego with the younger riders is they feel invincible. They haven't experienced enough in life to have seen some of the things that maybe some of us older, and when I say older, not just me, but in your 30s, 40s, and on, may have seen in our lifetime. Those younger riders under 20, let's just say under 20, may not have seen it or experienced anything like that to be able to gain from that experience to think, I don't want that to happen to me. They feel invincible. And really, it's an overconfidence, right? And I was probably there when I was younger. I never
Sure.
rode motorcycles, but I'm sure I was there. I probably thought, like, I'm not going to die doing whatever. And I did some stupid stuff in my teenage years, just not on a motorcycle.
you know that's the thing, about overconfidence. Like, some people get overconfident when they're older too. They're like, oh, I hear it all the time. I've been riding for 40 years, son. They're calling me son. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I take that as a compliment, right? Because I mean, I'm 57. You call me son, okay, it makes me feel pretty young. But what do you think about overconfidence and inexperience? Is overconfidence more dangerous than inexperience on a motorcycle?
Yeah, I think so. I have something that I don't remember. I don't own this. I don't remember where I picked it up. But the phrase is, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes people will have that overconfidence thinking they've got all this experience, but they don't know something. And because they don't know it, that could potentially be a problem. Right. So just because someone's been riding for 40 years, that's a lot of experience. I really appreciate people having 40 years of riding experience because I just learned and I'm kind of jealous. But what have they done with that 40 years? Do they just ride the motorcycle on straight lines on the highway? Um, I've only been riding for a few years, but I actually go out to parking lots and I practice my slow turns. I've done a local police challenge with the police doing this. There's, I guess, call it their slalom course. Right. So I hope that I want to gain that experience for being on the road so I can be better. But the person with 20, 30, 40 years experience or more, what type of riding are they doing that they think they're experienced? Right. Do they only ride in good weather? Have they never ridden in the rain? Because the minute they ride in the rain, maybe things are going to change and they're not changing the way they ride and something could happen. So yeah, I think the overconfidence, no matter how much experience you have, could be an issue.
Yeah, I don't think we ever stop learning. I mean, you always have to be open. I don't think it's something that's static. I don't think you could say, okay, I got this certificate and this knowledge never goes away. It comes with practice, it comes with experience, and, then our bodies start changing. So, we have to learn to adapt to different things that are happening to our body too. Maybe you gain weight, maybe you lose weight, maybe you got somebody on the back, a significant other. And, it's a constant learning process. But that kind of leads me into talking about riding maturity. And if I could ask you, do you think riding maturity is something that comes with age, or is it something that comes with like near misses or like hard lessons?
It could be a combination of both. What I've done some research into this, and in my own experience in learning how to ride, what I found was uh, being a mature person. I've had a career all my life. I'm getting ready to retire. I like to think that I've got a cool, calm head. The maturity for me when I was learning to ride was I recognized I didn't know what I was doing immediately. Just because I'm an older guy in the class doesn't mean I'm going to try to think that I'm better than everybody else. I'm learning like anybody else, from the person that's 20 to the person that's actually, I might have been the oldest person. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's the other thing with maturity, aside from near misses. Maybe the maturity isn't the right way to say this, but I have more experience driving. Let's say that. So I learned later in life, I have more experience driving. I didn't have to learn the rules of the road. I only had to learn how to ride the motorcycle. I haven't had any near misses yet, and I hope I don't have any near misses. So, but if I do, hopefully I'd learn from them. Now, watching other podcasts and, other channels on YouTube, there are some really great riders out there that I respect. And when you hear stories about them, they've had some close calls, they've had some accidents where they've learned from. I just hope that my maturity can prevent that, because I would rather have my maturity in the riding and know that I need to learn more than have those close calls or an accident to try to learn from. I'd rather avoid the accident altogether. Does that make
Yeah, and
sense?
I think, it totally makes sense. I think really riding a motorcycle happens. It starts even before you get on the motorcycle. You really have to be in the right mindset. You have to think about why you're riding, and if it's not the right time, then don't get on the bike. If you're really angry about something, really distracted about something, how can you really be paying attention to the road and all the distractions on the road? It's something that you really have to take into account when you want to ride right. And I think riding right is really important to safety and, other people around you. Um, you
It's
know,
interesting you bring that up, because I used to fly small airplanes, and
ah,
that was the exact same mindset. They said if you were angry or had some sort of stress from the day going on, don't get into the pilot seat, right? Don't fly the airplane. And I'm talking private license. Of course, if you have to go to work, you have to go to work.
right, right.
But it was the exact same thing, because there's a lot of risk involved, and same as on the motorcycle. So you nailed it there.
Yeah, it's something that's unique in all of us. We really have to know when it's time to get on the bike, to have some fun or whatever have you. But there's also a really good time if it's just not worth it. Don't get on the bike if you're not in the right mindset.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
riding right. I mean, let's take a 25-year-old, let's say, versus like a 55-year-old. Can a 25-year-old have a better ride right mindset than a 55-year-old? I mean, what could that look like?
Boy, that's a good question. Again, I think, kind of like alluding to my earlier answers, it depends. It would depend on the maturity of the person. I don't think they could have a better. You could have a really immature 55-year-old and a very mature 25-year-old. Maybe the 55-year-old is in a state where he can exercise his right or her right to not wear a helmet. But the 25-year-old's in the same state and they think, no, I want all the safety gear. What's the right mindset? I'm not saying, they shouldn't, I'm going to wear my helmet all the time, but you see what I mean? Like, someone's got the safety gear, someone doesn't have the safety gear, and they're two different ages. So that's, I don't think it really matters for the age. It's really the maturity and the decisions we make.
Surprisingly, I mean, look, I'm on Long Island in New York, and I ride often on New York roads. And what I see a lot is older riders getting getting road rage, essentially, when somebody cuts them off or like doesn't see them, or some sort of situation where the motorcyclist is not very happy with the car. I find that affects older riders more than it does younger riders, and that was something that was really shocking to me. That's just from personal observation. I don't have any facts or figures, but I think it's crazy just because somebody like offends you because they got too close to you or something like that. Like, just
Yeah.
relax. It's gonna be okay. Just say you're alive, and move on. There's more important things in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. I've never heard that about the older riders getting more angry. Of course, I see these videos of people, and you can't tell how old they are, but they get in this road rage and they're smashing mirrors. Now, it's interesting that you bring up the road rage, because yeah, I've learned early on, even in a car, that if someone does something, it's not personal. Sometimes people drive because they're aggressive and they're bad drivers. But most of the time, they're not intentionally trying to hurt you. It's a lot of times it's just people doing something dumb, right? So just back off, especially on a motorcycle, because we are absolutely vulnerable compared to someone in a car. If they decide to do something, they're going to hurt us. And even here in Canada, we've had road rage incidents where people have been shot, Right. And this is Canada, where we have a big gun control compared to the US. So, like, to me, it just amazes me that people would get into these road rage incidents and potentially put themselves in a situation where guns are going to be drawn, or knives, or even recently we had someone bear sprayed through the back window of their truck. Right. And this is so why not just back off? You don't know who the other person is. They could be a psychopath, sociopath. They might see you the next day and elicit revenge, right? So I don't understand the road rage thing myself.
Yeah, a lot of times what we say down here is play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
um, but it would help if we could see these riders coming far away before we ride with them. I'm wondering what warning signs tell you as a rider, young or old, has the wrong mindset.
yeah. I think the wrong mindset for me, from what I see on the road, and young or old, because of course I can't tell when they're wearing their helmets, are those riders that are riding aggressively and dangerously through traffic. We don't have lane splitting laws here, and I'm not sure how I would ride in a place where you could lane split, because I've never done it before. But we will be doing highway speeds in the highway, and I'll see motorcyclists, whether it doesn't matter what kind of bike they're on. Aside from, usually adventure bikes are not part of it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's the older rider, but like cruisers, Harleys, sport bikes, racing between traffic, not shoulder checking, just basically going as fast as they can. And at some point, really, they're rolling the dice. At some point, someone's going to move over and not see them, and it's going to end badly. So that's really the kind of wrong mindset I see. I'd like to say, seeing people in not enough gear is the wrong mindset, but maybe people can't afford the gear. There's all kinds of reasons they might not be wearing the gear. But having said that, I did see an old fella, quite a bit older than me, one day, riding his motorcycle. And I'm not making this up, riding his Goldwing with a bicycle helmet, shorts, and flip-flops.
Oh my God.
It doesn't even matter. I don't know how far he was
No.
going, but even if he was going around the block, that was a sight to behold. Right?
That's crazy. That is crazy. Oh my God.
Right. So there's a clear example of the wrong mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think you and I agree that the right mindset, riding right, is very important. But then to me, the problem is teaching it. I mean, look, I've taken an MSF course. You've taken an MSF course. I'm sure you've taken a lot of other courses, and I've done a lot of safety training myself. But in none of that really was there any training specifically. I mean, there's the saying, okay, look, if you're not in the right mindset, don't ride and stuff like that. But it's not really taught. And I don't know how to teach this. How do you teach it if it's so important?
Yeah, I don't know how they would teach that. And just judging by the class I had, combination of older riders and combination of younger riders, some of the younger riders, you could tell they didn't really have the right mindset, even though they were doing the MSF course, to our version of the MSF course, to get their license. And I think for them, it was more of a tick box to make things easier for them. Because kind of looking at them riding, and I know they were even this is a long time ago now, so I don't mind saying, and I'm not identifying anybody, but I know a couple of them were actually breaching their conditions for their learner's permit for riding as well, because they were just riding because they didn't know. I don't know how you would teach that, aside from me teaching some other person, taking someone under my wing who wants to learn how to ride, and trying to instill my thoughts of wisdom onto them for rider safety. But as for an MSF course, the instructors have very limited time. I don't know how they could get around doing that where it's going to stick with someone. Right? That's a tough one.
I really think it should be added in the curriculum somehow. I don't know either. Maybe getting a psychologist or something like that in there. I don't know. But you've been dropping a lot of knowledge on us, and you're fantastic to talk to. And I know in the beginning you said you had a website. Let's get some of that information out there. Not a website, but you have a podcast of your own. So tell me about your podcast. What's it about? Where can we find it?
Yeah, so it's my YouTube channel. It's called Spoked in the Eye. And it started off with me just kind of documenting my learning progress as a guy in his 50s, wanting to learn to ride a motorcycle. And then it slowly evolved from there into, my learning how to ride off-road, I've got a video of myself doing the police challenge course with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and just documenting everything. And then it turned into just sometimes I get things on my mind, and I'll do videos with voiceovers, just how I feel, my obsession with motorcycles, safety issues, changes in my motorcycle. It's really just motorcycle related. I do ride an adventure motorcycle, but it's not a channel dedicated to adventure motorcycles. It's just motorcycles because I am really obsessed with motorcycles.
So what do you ride? Tell us what you ride.
So I ride a 2019 V-Strom 1000. It's my second motorcycle. My first one was a KLR 650 with 40 horsepower. And I think that was a perfect motorcycle to learn on, other than everybody in my class accelerated much faster than me from stops. And the instructors kept trying to get me to catch up. And I just couldn't go any faster, which I think was fine. And then, after a year, I decided it was time to step up because I wanted something that was a little bit better on the highway, because I did some really long highway rides, 13-hour days, and the KLR 650 just wasn't cutting it for me. So I ended up finding this 2019 V-Strom 1000, and I've been really happy with it. It's I don't want to call it a unicorn bike because I don't have a lot of experience, but the first bike, I always wanted to get rid of it. I always wanted to buy something else. Since I've had this V-Strom, I am completely satisfied. I'm just loving every minute of it.
That's great. You two are a match.
Yeah.
But I've watched a lot of your episodes, and they're fantastic, especially for anybody over 50. You got to watch this stuff, even if you're not 50. Seriously, because you're going to get there at some point, and it'll help you. It'll help you grow, and how motorcycles really mesh into all this. It's a great thing you're doing. So go over there when you're not listening to my channel. Go over there. And for all you YouTube watchers, I'm going to publish all this stuff down here. But Spoked in the Eye, it's SPOKEDIN as in Nancy, THEEYE.com. Well, that's where you find it. That's where you find it on YouTube. So, and when you're not listening to that, you can come over to me, ridingcounsel.com. But I think that's probably all the information we're going to be able to share with the audience today. But I really want to thank you very much for dropping knowledge on us and coming on to our channel to do it. It's been really fantastic. So, everybody out there, under or over 50, I want you to ride free, ride safe, ride wild, but do so legally, everybody. All right, everybody, take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of Riding Counsel with Richard Jaffe. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow riders. Until next time, keep the rubber side down and ride safe.